We're back. It's been too long, folks. It took us 3 weeks of a break, as if I needed a break. But you know when you go through something, you just want to kind of take a step back from people, from things, from the internet. I mean, I did that, except, of course, I was on Twitter. So technically, I was still on the internet. But how am I going to keep up with the news? I need to keep up for you guys. So welcome to another episode of Red Zatar. It's the Impeachment Jubilee. We're all celebrating. In the last 3 weeks, a lot's happened. A lot of repetition, but a lot of very important highlights that I got to mention for you guys. Lebanon is still going through it. Different politicians are beating up innocent civilians that are protesting them. Ziad Aswad. So much is happening in Libya with Turkey and northwest Syria with Turkey. It's just, the world's going through it. 2020's been off to a boom of a start, and I want to try to cover it all for you guys. My name is Ali, and if this is your first time listening to Red Zatar, welcome. Thank you for your support. Please follow, like, subscribe, all of that. Give me a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. I really appreciate it. Let's get into it.
Got it bumping.
All right, guys. So I thought I'd want to kind of take a step back and talk about why I even started this podcast. Because up to this point, we've been covering a lot of the small stories or detailed stories, focused stories, instead of talking about the bigger picture as much as I'd like to. And here's what's going on with this podcast, Red Zatar. For the last 3 years, not only have I been on a personal journey of awakening, of figuring out myself, of finally loving myself, but a lot of people around the world are going through the same thing. And it's happening in mass right here in America. Something's going on. Something's going on. And one way to put it is we'll call it a spiritual battle. This spiritual battle had taken us all by the wayside for most of our lives. I'm 29. Millennials especially. I'm not sure about Generation Z or the generations that come after us, but for millennials, most of us have lost track of ourselves, growing up with pop culture taking over our airways, with the news brainwashing and subduing us with false narrative. What they didn't count on, though, was the internet waking us all out of the slumber. They didn't count on the ability for people like me, with no broadcast experience, with no media experience whatsoever, to grab a microphone and record a podcast to let people know. Whoever's willing to listen. And for the last 3 years, my own personal awakening has led me to really find not only how to love myself, but also how to love others. Especially those that maybe aren't as advanced in their awakening as I am. Patience in this day and age runs thin for most people. Everything is now, now, now. Everything is what have you done for me lately? The love, the essence of love and appreciation for one another was nearly, I say nearly because it got saved, was nearly completely taken away from humanity. This awakening was not just spiritual for me. It was also political. It was social. It even changed my views on entertainment. It changed my views on the news. Who to trust, who not to trust, where to go for the news. Not everybody has the time to go to the source of the news of the day or of the week. For those that are blessed with the ability and the time to watch, to monitor what's happening in the world, so much is exposed that it's hard to go back. It's hard to look back on anything we had believed in then when we were younger. The media was manipulating and trying to sculpt society into how they wanted us to be. But it failed. It failed. The frustrations built up to a point where Trump was elected. And we finally had a president in the highest office of the land that represented the people, represented the frustrations of the people, all of the things in America the libertarians would complain about, all the things that the populists or the socialists or the conservatives were complaining about being taken advantage of by both political parties and the media, manifested in Trump, which is why I think he's the anointed president. He's the one that's been chosen for this moment to not only save America, but to save the world. All of you Arabs out there that complained about American policing of the Middle East, or of the world for that matter. We have an army base in nearly every country. Your complaints are solved and answered by Trump being in office. For the first time, I finally can say I have a president that wants to bring our troops back home to defend this country. For the first time, I can say that we have a president that wants to prosper all Americans, not just the corporatists, not just the Wall Street people. And for the last 3 years, while we were waking up, a battle was taking place, a physical battle, between that deep state, the people, the bureaucracy that were in place for 30, 40 years, passing down the torch to their secret society brethren and sons and daughters to sell out this country. And Trump, they've been wanting to take him down and impeach him for 3 years. And it all culminated last week. He's acquitted forever. It's not going to stop them from keeping at it. It's not going to stop the enemy from trying to take him down again. But you know what I love about what happened? Is we're finally on the offensive. For the last 3 weeks, I've been keeping quiet, like I said in the intro, because monitoring the news every single day like I do gets to you at a certain point. You hear so many opinions, you hear so many narratives that it takes away from your energy to the point where you just kind of have to disconnect for a while. The impeachment trial wasn't that great of a watch. If you didn't see it, you didn't miss anything. We knew what the result was going to be. The Senate was going to acquit the president. They had no evidence. It was all a sham impeachment simply to try to ruin the president's name between now and the election. And even that failed. Their attempt to slander and smear Trump flipped on its head, boomeranged that back at them, and now Biden is in real trouble. He's been exposed fully. His son, John Kerry, and his son-in-law. Who else? Pelosi and her childish games. Everything's been put out in the open for everybody to see. But we got the acquittal. And from that acquittal, we're now on the offensive. I've been saying for 3 years, people in the Obama administration will be going to jail. People in the deep state establishment bureaucracy, whether it's the military bureaucracy or the media bureaucracy or the food industry, every corporate oligopoly that's been running this country and most of the world into the ground, into poverty and disease and division, all of these people will be taken to jail, tried, whether it's a military tribunal or through our federal courts. For 3 years, I've been saying this. And what has Trump been doing for those 3 years while we felt frustrated that things weren't happening fast enough? These are century-old plans and systems that we are dismantling in 3 years. What we've missed throughout all of this, throughout all of the nonsense that we'd hear about what Trump was doing and not doing, and how Trump was really about to get us into World War III or get us into another recession or even a depression. What was really happening is America's been built up stronger, more prosperous, freer than it's ever been. The administrative state has been getting thinned out for 3 years. Sealed indictments have been piling up and piling up. The latest count that I saw from pacer.gov, which is the official government website for all court proceedings in the country, has the sealed indictment numbers at 144 plus thousand. 144,000 sealed indictments in 3 years since October of 2017. Less than 3 years. We usually average around 1,200 a year. Sealed indictments, each sealed indictment that's filed in a court has a limit of 35 defendants on it. So let's say each one of those sealed indictments has 35 people on there. What are we talking? 3.5 million about to be pulled off of our streets, taken out of our communities, off their CEO, off of their corporate boards. Why was 2019 the record year for CEO departures and resignations? Why? And I'm not simply talking American corporations, I'm talking about globally. If you don't believe me, Google it. 2019, record year for CEO resignations and removals. While we slept, numbed by the media and its narrative, numbed by the music we listen to and the movies we watch and the shows we watch, a silent war has been happening in this country, and it has implications for us for the next 1,000 years. It's going to be biblical. How lucky are we to be alive in this moment in time? Have you thanked God today for waking up, for being alive, for having your family taken care of, a roof over your head, a job, a company, whatever you do in your life? Have you thanked God yet? We're so lucky. Every generation has that need to want to say they're the chosen generation. But up until 3 years ago, I had lost faith in this generation or in the past generations. I had no truth to seek, no truth to rely on. And in 3 years, everything's, at least for me, has been flipped over on its head. What's happening right now, we've been dreaming, praying, hoping, and wishing for since we were kids. We just didn't know it. The entire paradigm we've known to be reality, the religions, the companies, the TV shows and the movies, the celebrities, the presidents and the history of all mankind, everything is done. History ends. It ended in 2016. A new day is coming. And in that new day, there will be peace for all of humanity. So what happens when there's peace? Instead of us toiling to pay bills, instead of governments toiling to build war machines, those resources, that manpower, that brain power, goes to more productive things, like lifting the poor out of poverty. And it doesn't have to be through social programs. That's not what I mean. But with that focus, the money that's been misspent for so long, that could have been going to all of our homeless, to all of our mentally ill, becomes efficient again, spent wisely, with a focus on results and not on keeping the status quo as it's been. The model that we've been establishing here in America for the last 3 years will provide the same opportunity for freedom. The same freedoms that we enjoy in America will be going to every other country in the world. Inalienable rights for all of mankind. The tragedies that we hear around the world of governments suppressing their people, whether it's through violence or through censorship, or both, those will be stories of the past. Our children and our children's children will live in a new world. A world where nations are proud to be nations. Where free market ideals are truly allowed to thrive. Where governments stay out of the way. Where governments only regulate and limit business if they behave inappropriately. The one-size-fits-all approach to our policies, to our companies, doesn't work. It never worked. And we're finally starting to see the establishment politics for what it is. One size fits all means more money for them, for their pockets, for their corruption. One size fits all means Nancy Pelosi can buy a third multi-million-dollar mansion off of a public office job. Same goes for Maxine Waters. Same goes for Mitt Romney. Same goes for John McCain's dead ass. No more status quo. No more. And the acquittal that Trump received last week is the start, finally, of the end of the deep state. Between now and the election, so much corruption is going to be exposed. So much greed and evil is going to be exposed and destroyed. Mark my words. America will never be the same again. Trump will win re-election in a landslide. MAGA Republicans will win the House and the Senate. When I say MAGA Republicans, there's a difference here. I'm not talking about Republicans or the Republicans of yesteryear, the neocons and the rhinos. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about MAGA that support the president's policies and his agenda. American politics will never look the same. People, it's going to be completely different. And I hope and I pray that at some point it's going to look so different that I'm not going to have to sit here and narrate about it or be a pundit, give my opinion on news, because it's just going to become the new day, the new paradigm, where we all know things are good, everybody's happy, everybody's in peace, loving their neighbor, prospering in their own way, whether they're an entrepreneur or a worker in construction or in manufacturing or in retail. It doesn't matter. Wages rising naturally, as they have been for the last 3 years, especially for the lowest income workers. Finally, equality for Black Americans. Finally, 112 years of Democrats taking advantage of the black vote is finally being broken. Do you guys notice this? I thought that I would never see this day. When Trump is now at least, the last I checked, was 35% of the black vote in just 3 years. Where are we going to be in the next 5? The ghettos that we've all pined over. The ghettos that we hate exist because we want to see people thrive. We don't want to see people dependent on government or on lack of opportunity so that they go to crime. All of those neighborhoods are going to be prospering again. Home ownership going up. Independence going up. It's a beautiful day. And in this beautiful day, love is king. In this beautiful day, God comes back. The concept of God. The love of God. Inner love, love for family, love for your wife, your husband, your kids, for your neighbor, for strangers, for your enemies. It all comes back. We're so lucky to be alive. And in your darkest day, when you sit down and you feel alone, you feel tired, you feel sick, you feel abandoned, remember, you're here because there's a plan for you. I don't know what my plan is, but I'm figuring it out as I go. But I know that there is a plan. The most cliched thing I've heard throughout my life is what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. And every time I was told that, I would shrug it off. Oh my God, here we go again. Another armchair preacher trying to give me advice. At this point in my life, all of those cliched arguments are making so much more sense. And I know it's happening for most of people listening right now. Some of you are younger, my age, a little older, but everybody in their own way is realizing that there's a bigger picture that we've been missing. Substance had been missing in our lives. Purpose. We're not here to slave away for the deep state. We're not here to slave away to pay taxes to a corporate America. That's not what we're here to do. We've been enslaved for far too long. and the shackles are finally broken. All right, guys, that was my little rant for today. I had to kind of just go through it, talk a little bit about the impeachment. I hope you like that. But I also want to mention a couple of things that are happening around the world, especially in the Middle East. Because the Middle East doesn't look like it's ever looked. Last week, I should say the week before last, President Trump released the deal of the century. In the audience, while he was presenting this deal with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, there were three foreign ministers from Arab nations in the crowd. Here's where this deal is historic. Every attempt at reaching peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis has failed. Not only has it failed, but it had never received Arab support. Every attempt, whether it's Oslo or the list goes on and on, they've tried it multiple times. Arab nations always were unsatisfied. What's the difference now? Now, the only unsatisfied party are the Palestinians. No matter what you hear about these Arab nations and the Arab League coming out and condemning it a couple of weeks after, like a couple of days ago, I heard the Arab League came out with a condemnation of the deal. That's all politics. Most Arab nations have already come out through their foreign ministries in support of not just the plan, but also of the action that Trump is taking and his creative thinking in approaching this problem. And the Palestinians are left alone in a corner now where they're forced to make a deal. They're not getting aid anymore from the biggest donor of aid, which was the U.S. to them, because they were receiving this aid and calling for the death to America for the last 50 years. While their politicians got rich, owned properties in and outside of their land, and their people suffered without a proper education, without proper opportunities. So they're struggling economically. Now they're struggling politically, both in their region and globally. Their only friend to turn to is the UN, a corrupt organization that was trying to get us into a new world order if Trump didn't win. But guess what? The UN also has a dilemma. Trump will not allow the UN, no matter who is a part of the UN, to take advantage of America and its allies in its attempt to free the world from the grip of globalism. Old stale thinking is done. There is no more time. There is no more energy for it. The people of the Palestinians, the people, right, of that land, they're sick of it. They're sick of broken promises. They're sick of violent extremism incited by their leaders. And whatever you saw, videos of people protesting and throwing up balloons with bombs on them, IED balloons into Israel, that's a small group. That's a minority. The real people, just like the real people in Lebanon came out and started protesting the corruption in their government, those real people are sitting idly by, reading this plan, seeing the opportunity behind it. And when it clicks, when the right moment comes, and when they feel that spirit, watch what happens in the Holy Land. Watch how the Middle East changes in the next 5 years. Because it's not just the Israeli-Palestinian problem that's being solved. The Middle East's dependence on American law enforcement through our military, which is an ironic statement to say the least, because our military is not supposed to be policing anywhere, let alone the Middle East. The dependence they had on us is being shattered. Our dependence on Middle Eastern oil is done for. We are now the biggest producer of oil. We are independent. We don't get dragged into wars simply for oil. What Trump is doing right now is removing the shackles off America, propping up the militaries of each of the Arab nations so that they can not only defend themselves, but pay us for our services if they need our help. While creating a coalition, sort of like NATO, we're going to call it the Arab NATO, I forget the name of it for now, for them to secure their own neighborhoods. This is why the Arab nations are in love with this deal of the century, because they, first of all, they know this is the last chance the Palestinians have at achieving some of their goals. But they also know that the old way of thinking is dead. For the last 70 years, the Middle East has suffered. The people have suffered. Many got rich, whether it's off of oil or off corruption, evil acts, but the people suffered. And it's done for. It's done for. You cannot be a good steward of godly morals and allow your people to live in poverty, disrespect, squalor, and lack. Most of all, lack of purpose. One big thing I know about Lebanon, whenever I go back, nobody has respect for anybody. If you're not in my family or from my clique or from my sect, religious sect, I'm talking, the last time I've been in Lebanon was 3 years ago. So, I can't speak for after the protests that began, which completely destroyed the idea of sectarianism in Lebanon, which I'm super happy about. But 3 years ago, if you're not a part of my little clique, I will honk at you while I drive. I will disrespect your mother and your sister. I will disrespect other women, daughters of men. Why? Where's the self-respect, first of all? Second of all, where's the respect for others? It doesn't exist. Corruption trickles down from the top. If your leadership is corrupt, why are you supposed to be a good person? No, screw it. I'll be just as corrupt in my daily behavior as my leaders. They don't respect me. Why should I respect anybody? Those days are gone. They're over. People can't be subjugated to this level of evil for long. There is an innate spirit within each human to want freedom, to want greatness, to provide for their families, and to live in peace. And all over the world now, we're seeing people wake up to this spirit. That little part of us doesn't go quiet for long. It might go quiet for years, decades even. But its destiny is to be brought out and manifest in reality. I spoke about Libya and what's happening in Idlib in Syria, with Turkey's engagement now with the Syrians and the Russians, and America's withdrawal from the area for the most part. That shift is what you're going to expect for the next 5 to 6 years. Because no more are you going to seeing America incite war or be brought in for somebody else's war for no reason, if it means no national security risk for us. Now the players in the region will have to step up to the plate and take care of their own backyards. No matter how long some of these battles have been going on. The battle between the Kurds and the Turks has been going on for centuries, okay? And we finally have the biggest chance of actually solving that right now. Why do you think Trump still has his soldiers around that oil field in northwest Syria? Is it for his money? For the government of America's money? Or is it a strategic play for Turkey and the Kurds to finally have peace? That oil field might, from what I've heard, go to the Kurds so that they can have their own small little economy where their people can prosper and not think about the Turks. And while they're prospering and not toiling and looking for ways to start wars with the Turks are happy. They don't have a threat on their borders anymore. Boom, problem solved. In this day, the impossible is possible. And on Red Zata, this podcast, I want to find the possibility in every impossibility and lay it out for you to listen to. I hope you share this. I hope you tell your friends about this. The more ears listening to this, the more happiness I could spread. The more hope I could spread. I'm not trying to get famous off of all of this. There's a purpose for me while, I took those 3 weeks off questioning, why am I making a podcast. 700,000 podcasts out there. Who am I competing with? The answer was, I'm only competing with myself. Something's been telling me to get on this microphone and talk. And I've been talking. And I don't care if I have 2 or 4 million listeners. I just want to talk. And I appreciate all of the support you guys have. I mean, with 6 episodes, this is going to be the 7th. But I think I'm at 160 listens on SoundCloud. If you like what you hear, let people know. I have Twitter, Red Zathar. I'm on IG. I'm on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. I'm everywhere. YouTube even. Let people know. And I'll be eternally grateful. Let me leave it there. It's been an incredible comeback episode. Hopefully I don't have to come back from any more hiatuses, but I appreciate it all, really. I really do. And let's appreciate the moment we live in. All right? That's the main reason for Red Zathar. I've been Ali. You've been you. And I hope you have a blessed week. Thank you for listening, people.